cool. You know, we missed some wheat. We had tons of worms when the radishes, you know, died. And now we've got tons of worms again in all these roots. Every time I dig up wheat, you know, there's just worms galore in here. So it's pretty cool. They're eating all this decaying matter here, and this is really, you know, preserving the rain that we get. So again, I could care less about equipment, and we ran over some beans, and you know, they're run over. Get over it. This is all about agronomy, and we can adjust once we figure out kind of how these two crops kind of commingle. But basically what we done here, if you haven't watched, this is all grown on manure. So we drag lined the field around the 1st of October. We planted radishes. I spread them with pellet lime to mellow out the pH, and then we waited and we planted wheat in twin 37.5-inch rows like this, October 16th. Then we came in and cross-planted a group 4 extend bean, and then that allowed us to use this herbicide synergy. And post the beans were up, we could use dicamba on the wheat to clean it up to get us to this point. And I just sprayed glyphosate the other day to clean up any volunteer wheat after a rain. But the point is here, okay, this is what aggravates me. If you know me, I'm on here all the time showing you what I do, and I call people on the phone all the time, and they get so, you know, they own their method. And especially these folks to the north and west, I won't pick on you, in the Dakotas. And I talk about these confined feeding operations, and that's new to them. You know, ground is $500 an acre, so they can go all this rotational grazing, and that's great. I mean, that's a great system. I'm not going to argue the system, but we have all these hog barns. So what can we do now that this has happened, that we have millions of hogs, to improve our soils? Because this is old. If you look around me, we have all deciduous trees. It's not the most efficient carbon, you know, mechanism here. So we don't have the topsoil you have out west. So this whole dream here is to use manure to grow wheat and grow soybeans, and it's all a systems approach. So anyway, I'm still learning. Next year we're going to try 3 different things, hopefully. We're going to do what we did this last year, but I'm going to widen the wheat even more. I want to get more soybeans out here. It's going to take a while to completely canopy here. I want to go twin 45s and triple 60s. And what I'm really getting at is I want to make a machine that's one pass that injects manure, and hopefully I can somehow blow manure out ahead of some coulters and get a cover crop in there, and then inject more manure in a band and plant wheat above it. And what that will do is I can lower the wheat population, I mean down next to nothing, and it's going to force it to tiller, and I exhaust that nitrogen. The problem as we get into these areas with all these hog barns is our canvas, our ambient soil test levels, P levels, are high. So I don't want to apply all this manure because it's just going to keep on raising it. It's not doing me any good. And there's farms next to me. You know, this guy might have a 20 phosphorus if he doesn't have a hog barns, and I'm sitting at 200 pounds on the soil test. So anyway, if I can lower the rate underneath it and spread that, then underneath the wheat is even a more condensed band, and the wheat exhausts it, but it's right there to tiller and mass. And that's how we can get that cost of production of wheat down to next to nothing. If we get that wheat population down, you're talking 20 pounds, 15, 20 pounds, 200,000 seeds, and we can get 60 to 80 bushel wheat. We had about 80 bushel wheat out here. And then we can use the straw to retain moisture, and we're deciding yield in 2 completely different seasons here. So the wheat is deciding yield in April and May. And in our eastern corn belt, we always have moisture in the ground. So the wheat is a pretty sure bet. And the beans doesn't really decide here till right now, till September, especially if you get a group 4 bean out here. So that's where I keep talking about this leverage of the flex. We're not going to get 100% yield of either crops, but we can place manure and use a systems approach with cover crops and cash crops and manure to lower our total cost but increase our revenues. And then we keep doing this, we're going to increase the organic matter of our soils, and we can spread this out logistically over a lot more acres. So if I ban this manure and we get that down to say 2,000 gallons an acre, but underneath the wheat is a very concentrated band, then we exhaust the nitrogen, our phosphorus levels will go up, and then logistically I can have the trucks to move it away from our barns 5 to 10 acres, and I can start putting this on cash rented ground or start sharing this with neighbors. And eventually we can bring this throughout the whole corn belt and get in a system that's just a lot better for the environment. So anyway, really been fortunate with the weather, the moisture that we've had. This is really going to start flourishing here with this rain. But anyway, you know, you got rows here. This is our 20s, you can see. This is the tram line, and this is where all of our hay compaction went when I did post herbicide, a little foliar feed and all that stuff. So we did as little damage to the crop as possible. And the draper head, if I haven't talked about that, the cross planted, when the draper head, you can see we're right here, when it would push, the beans had nothing to push up against, so a lot of them were unscathed, and we really didn't clip hardly anything out here. But these are, honestly, these are some of our I'm gonna really tear it up there, but these are some of the best beans on the farm. I mean, they're pretty far ahead. They're group 4, so they're not going to start turning probably till that first week of October. So we've got 13-14 weeks of the factory of reproduction going on. So exciting stuff. All right, any questions? The 8 people on here, I appreciate you watching, by the way. You know, I just ramble on, but I really think that you know, I look at manure like oil, and you know, it's worth billions and billions and billions of dollars, but we just treat it like waste. And a system coming in could be interesting. All right, say bye, folks.